Welcome back, friends. Last guy fan. It's time for more Voice LP with Great Ace Attorney. So, let's keep going. So, 10 years ago, a young man appealed to the public about an extraordinary event he'd witnessed. A criminal who had been put to death, re-emerging from his grave in the middle of the night. But the public treated his claim as nothing more than an amusing anecdote that was soon forgotten. 10 years later, the same man steals a waxwork model of the executed criminal, ostensibly to use as a body double for the victim in the case we're discussing here today. Even though the waxwork's build is a poor match for the victim, and its face is obscured by a mask. So the question is, why would the man do such a thing? Which brings us to 3 days ago, when the birdcage crashed into the Crystal Tower. If the birdcage had in fact contained not the body of Mr. Asman, but that same waxwork, the coroner from Scotland Yard who investigated, Dr. Scythe, would have noticed immediately. And yet she submitted this autopsy report for the victim, which the court has seen earlier. Why? Because the waxwork was that of the professor. Is that what you're saying? Dr. Scythe put her name to a document confirming the death of a condemned criminal who was still alive. A criminal whose apparent resurrection was witnessed by Mr. Drebber. But that misconduct was a deadly secret that the coroner would do anything to protect. Which is precisely why Mr. Drebber used that particular waxwork as the body double. Oh, to mess with her, alright. My lord, this court must summon Dr. Scythe to the stand. The defense is determined to find out exactly how the coroner and Mr. Drebber are connected. But according to the missive I received this morning through the prosecutor's office, Dr. Scythe is unable to participate in these proceedings. Is that not the case? She told us herself, didn't she? She did. I heard her the voice gave her. Lord Von Zeeks won't be summoning me as a witness. Lord Strongheart has forbidden it. Lord Strongheart? The Pandora's box you were warned about is the Professor case. But please don't make the mistake of thinking you'll get any information about it out of me. Something happened on the night of that killer's execution 10 years ago. And surely nobody would want to get to the bottom of that more than Lord Von Zeeks. That prosecution calls for the instructions in that missive to be scrapped. What? But Lord Von Zeeks, the missive was issued from the Lord Chief Justice's office. Objection! The assigned prosecutor has the final say on policy in any particular trial. In other words, me. Yes. Let Enoch Drebber and Dr. Scythe both take the stand together. Order, order, order. Very well, I will uphold your request. Bailiff, send a subpoena with immediate effect, addressed to Dr. Scythe of the Forensic Investigation Team. The woman is compelled to attend on Her Majesty's orders. Alright then, Enoch Drebber and Dr. Scythe. If they weren't colluding with one another, this crime could never have been committed. I'm just a stone's throw away, I can feel it. The truth behind all of this is about to come out. Am I at a to be continued point? No, okay, good, okay. Black, white, and to spell still there, alright. Quite the crowd. Thank you for your attendance at such short notice, Dr. Scythe. I'm disappointed in you, Lord Von Zeeks. You've completely betrayed the agreed policy of both Scotland Yard and the prosecutor's office. Betrayal is not my nature, as long as the truth isn't compromised. If it is, if there's even a hint of wrongdoing, then no matter whom it concerns or disgruntles, I will pursue the matter to the bitter end, as would any prosecutor worth his salt. Mr. Drebber, you took the victim's life by means of a machine that you constructed in your workshop. And Dr. Scythe, as the investigating coroner, you are the first on the scene to examine the victim's body. It is the belief of the defense that you collaborated with each other and were both complicit in this crime. And where's your evidence? At present, we have no definitive evidence, but we do have a very significant clue. What are you talking about? I'm talking, of course, about the waxwork. This model of the killer known as the Professor, who was sentenced to death 10 years ago. You don't need to tell me. I witnessed the man's execution with my own eyes, and officially pronounced him dead. That remains to be seen. Is that so? According to newspaper reports from the time, on the night following his execution, the killer came back to life. Don't waste my time. And the sole witness to that mysterious event was you, Mr. Drebber, wasn't it? If what you saw in the graveyard that night 10 years ago wasn't some chilling fiction, but reality, it would make you privy to a very great secret of Dr. Scythe's. A secret so profound it could compel the coroner to agree to collaborate in your evil scheme, in fact. Mr. Drebber, tell the court. Tell everyone the truth of what you saw that night in Lowgate Cemetery. Who was the student who saw it? You can see the resemblance, actually, don't catch it? With the man and Madame Tussauds, I mean. Surely he's not going to claim that's really what he saw, especially not after all those years. He was a research student at the University of London, was he? And a bit too clever for his own good, if you ask me. He's a clock. Alright, here we go. What an interesting twist. When at the time, not one person would take me seriously. Yet now, here we are, 10 years later. Suddenly my story matters. And in a court of law, too. Very well, then, if everyone so wishes. Let's be frank. I'll tell you the truth about what happened that night, for what it's worth. So, Mr. Drebber, your testimony, please, about the events of that night 10 years ago. You will tell the court exactly what you stumbled across in Lowgate Cemetery. Yes, of course, as you wish. Witness testimony. Here we go. The cemetery 10 years ago. The reason I was in Lowgate Cemetery at all 10 years ago was for a spot of moonlighting, shall we say. What? Yes, the illustration in that newspaper article was based on what I witnessed that night. But thinking back now, I realized that I never actually saw the professor. Soon afterwards, I was visited by a young woman who sculpted a model of me from wax. Then I gave up on my dream of becoming a scientist, and it was all because of that newspaper article. Really? That's it? Wait a minute! You're claiming you didn't actually see the professor now? Of course, you'd have to have a screw loose if you believed a corpse could come back from the dead. But you're saying this article is not worth the paper it's printed on. I think that would describe it perfectly, yes. If the details in the article aren't true, it nullifies your argument for why Mr. Drebber and Dr. Scythe would have been working together. So he's discrediting himself to cripple my argument? Tell me, witness. You claim to have been in the cemetery on some
Auxiliary business. Can you elaborate?
That's right, grave robbing, to be precise.
Jesus!
As you know, Locate Cemetery is at the rear of Barclay Prison. So among students at the university, it had a reputation for being haunted by the ghosts of condemned convicts.
Grave robbing, you say?
Yes, exhuming fresh corpses to sell is reasonably lucrative. Of course, I never laid a finger on any valuables buried with the dead.
So you're one of the so-called resurrectionists. A particularly unpleasant scourge on society?
Actually, my fellows and I went by another name, the Repurposers.
That is quite beyond the pale. We'll invite divine retribution, sir.
Yes, well, I think I suffered retribution enough. The Daily Circus eventually unearthed my name and put it in print. It caused me a great many headaches. In the end, I had to leave the university. That was the only paper with the bad grace to identify me unambiguously, I might add.
I see. Out of interest, who drew the illustration for this article?
Ah yes, that was the reporter who exposed me. He sketched that right in front of me, as I described the scene. Obviously, as time ticked on, I bitterly regretted what I'd done. Claimed to have seen something I never truly saw. Foolish, very foolish.
You notice how he didn't say the name? Well, counsel, for the defense, you may proceed to the cross-examination now.
At once, my lord. He did not say the name for a reason. Okay, let's see. I got 4? What? Okay. So there's 5 things. Let's see what they are. So there's moonlighting. Illustration article is based on a witness that night. Back now, I realize I actually never saw the professor. Afterwards, I was visited by a young woman. Then I gave up my dream because it was all because of newspaper article. Alright. Let's go. By moonlighting, you mean grave robbing, do you? Surely you only need to look at the graveyard scene and my appearance to gauge the answer to that.
The lantern and spade.
But who on earth would want to buy a dead body?
Hospitals. Yeah, there you go, right there.
Any major hospital.
A hospital?
In order to better understand the human body, the study of anatomy is crucial to medical science. But there isn't a hospital in the world that has enough specimens to work with. Obviously, they can't openly express an interest in obtaining more by dubious means. As aspiring scientists, the young research students had no money to work with, as I'm sure you can imagine. So we made surreptitious arrangements with a hospital via some of our medical student acquaintances. We would never take anything of value from the graves. This was all for the furtherance of science, you see. That's what we all told ourselves every time we stole into the graveyard at night, spade in hand.
You realize body snatching is a serious crime. If you were caught, you could expect the gravest of consequences.
We students were caught between the hammer and the anvil. We needed funds for research.
Professor Harebrain said exactly the same. I'm quite speechless at the apparent levity with which you've revealed his apparent behavior.
Well, if you wanted to know why I was there at Logate Cemetery, that's the reason. But I never expected it to end the way it did. That I regret to this day.
Alright, I don't think we get anything from that one. This one. The strange happening at Locate Cemetery, which you can now deny.
Not entirely. I ran to fetch the police at the time, you know. I was shaking like a leaf. But they didn't believe a word of it. In fact, I was very nearly arrested myself.
So you went to the newspapers instead?
I started big with the London News, but unsurprisingly, they didn't want to know either. In the end, though, it was reporters from the gossip rags, the gutter press, that came to get my story. And it spread like the plague through the capital, as gossip-hungry Londoners lapped up the tale.
The story was in every single paper at the time, with the exception of some broadsheets.
And yet only 2 or 3 of them actually interviewed me personally. Most of the accounts turned out to be very interpretive ghost stories.
I want to see something. Oh, she's just sitting there and listening, alright. What about the article in the Daily Circus?
That particular journalist found me at my dormitory. I don't know how, but he discovered my name. I recounted to him exactly what had happened that night.
And from your description, he drew this illustration?
Precisely. That's how I learned that the condemned man was the infamous professor. Because the reporter told me so. I had no idea myself, do you see.
The newspaper reporters won't snoop around in matters that don't concern them. So the scene portrayed in the illustration is accurate, then?
Well... Whoa, hit the wrong thing. Man.
What are you talking about?
I think I explained already, didn't I? Locate Cemetery is at the rear of Barclay Prison. So it was renowned among us students at the university for being haunted by the ghosts of condemned convicts. For some absurd reason, I was scared of the graveyard at night, and as a result, only too willing to believe that nonsense about the dead coming back to life.
You said you actually saw it!
I said what I'd seen in my mind's eye. After all, resurrection is impossible, isn't it? You'd have to be unhinged to think otherwise. Unless, of course, you have some evidence that proves I encountered the professor that night.
I don't know. Is there any material evidence that could show he really did see the professor?
If we have anything at all, Miss Naruhodo.
I know, I need to present it against that irritatingly backtracking statement of his.
The point is, that night was a pivotal moment in my life.
Do we have anything? Out of curiosity. Let me go look. Only if that camera was real. Yeah, the camera, but there's no way we still have the camera, right? So, yeah, we can try the camera in a bit. Let's go back to 4. That young woman being Madame Tuspells, of course.
Precisely. I must say, I didn't expect to run into her again, like this 10 years later. As I have explained, I went by the name published in the article, and comme ça, I found the man.
Yes, the article in the Daily Circus, I think you said.
I was a poor student with barely a penny to my name at the time. And the young lady put £5 in front of me.
So you readily consented to having a waxwork of yourself made and gave permission for it to be put on display.
I did. I should sell what little I had to sell, I concluded.
Ah oui, I remember now.
I purchased something else from you that day, n'est-ce pas?
The camera? I swear to God it was the camera.
Did you? I can't say I remember.
What was it, madam? Oh my God!
This camera.
Ah! Wait.
Yes, I made a point of taking it with me whenever I made an excursion into cemeteries.
You took a camera with you, sir. To what end?
To record the details of the bodies I disinterred. But I had no intention of ever visiting a graveyard again after that night, so I sold it.
I see.
But I still have it, monsieur. It is a part of the special exhibit in my House of Horrors. I am very meticulous about such things. It is the Dispel's way.
Wait, we have it!
It would seem, then, that this is the very camera Mr. Drebber took with him to locate the cemetery on the night in question.
Yes, interesting. Oh, here we go.
Actual camera Mr. Drebber had with him in the cemetery 10 years ago. The lens extended, dark staining can be seen on the bellows.
Now we can mess with it.
Now let's go mess with the camera.
That's what we needed. We needed to know we could mess with this thing.
Right?
Mess with this.
What a wonderful machine.
You really love contraptions like that. You love contraptions like this, don't you?
Oh yes, anything mechanical I find absolutely irresistible.
Almost irresistible? Surely.
Oh, whenever I see a pocket watch, for example, I can't help myself. I simply have to take it apart.
That's worrying.
Yes, Father tells the time by the rumblings of his stomach now. He's given up having a watch.
Oh my god, poor Professor Mikatoba. There's the blood. Did we see this before?
Look, Mrs. Naruhodo.
What is it?
On the bellows, just here. There seem to be some very dark red stains.
Yes, you're right. It looks like blood, actually.
Oh my.
I'm sure it's not what you're thinking. Alright, can we do anything else with this? What about in here? Can I mess with this? There's just nothing in there, though. Okay. This is where the photographic plate goes, I think, yeah? Isn't it?
Yes, that's right. Isn't it incredible to think that this is the actual camera Mr. Drebber used that night? I certainly never imagined a piece of evidence would be on display in Madame Dispels.
She's very keen on everything being as true to life as possible, though, isn't she? Alright, well, all we got is the blood, then. I don't think there's anything else we can mess with. I don't know how we're going to use the blood to our advantage, though. How do you prove the blood's what you think it is? Still, we have the camera. Next one. Hold it! This article, you mean? Published in the Daily Circus?
Yes, somebody informed the Dean that it was me that appeared in the article. And carelessly let slip that night after night I was digging up graves. Hardly a model student, you might say. The university's reputation was execrably defiled, and I was expelled as a result. Mon Dieu, I had no idea.
And having been run out of the university, you found employment in a somewhat specialist trade. You combined your knowledge of science with knowledge of stage magic to create various experimental machines intended to demonstrate never-before-seen technology. And you use those deceptive machines to trick the government and private investors into giving you money. Professor Albert Harebrained was just your latest victim, wasn't he?
Whatever are you talking about? I have no recollection of doing anything of the sort.
What's Drebber up to? Why would he suddenly change his tune and recant his claim?
I wonder if perhaps it's because his circumstances have changed now.
What circumstances?
Well, if he admits to having seen the professor emerging from alive from his grave 10 years ago, it will expose a secret in Dr. Science past that she would desperately want to hide.
Yes, of course. If Drebber and Dr. Scythe are working together now, then if Drebber were to betray her, there would be no reason for her to continue to cooperate. In that case, there's only one way around it. I'll have to prove he really did see it. Prove he really did see the professor's corpse coming back from the dead, as he originally claimed.
Yes, Mr. Naruhodo, exactly.
Yeah, I got 2 spots where I can put that camera.
Let's go ahead and scum save just in case I picked the wrong spot. Try the camera and see what happens.
Objection!
Ah, it's wrong spot. Try the camera here.
Objection!
Oh, God help me. What? Okay, so that didn't work out. Alright. Let's just use this. Let's see. Where's the newspaper? Just do it.
Objection!
God help me. Or maybe I'm supposed to press this part again. Let's see if I'm supposed to press this part again. I suppose you just gotta press the one spot again. It's rare, but sometimes you have to double press. Because you need to press in a specific order. Here we go. I don't know. Is there any material evidence that could show he really did see the professor? If we have anything with stone. Okay, right. Let's bring up the newspaper, huh?
Objection!
Nope. There might be something in the evidence I'm just not finding that I need to find. That's the thing, a dark standing can be found. And that's the thing, is what can I do with that? I'm clueless right now. Already looked at the camera. We found the stain. Oh yeah! Maybe that's what we're supposed to throw in his face.
Objection!
Nope. So he's got to still be as... So that was before he lost it. Okay. I already used the camera. Newspaper?
Objection!
What? Why? Alright, well, load. Gonna need those tries for later. Why? Why is it the newspaper? Boop, let's go. Sorry, Mr. Trevor, but I don't believe that. Don't believe what? Your latest claim. You did see the professor on that night, 10 years ago. Oh dear. We seem to be at odds. But I was there, and you are not. I know what I hadn't seen. The illustration with this article was drawn based upon what you told the journalist that you witnessed. A figure emerging from a tomb, wearing an iron mask. Yes, when the killer was tried 10 years ago, it was decided in the closed court's ruling that the man would wear the mask to hide his identity. It wasn't to be removed even during his execution and subsequent burial. Not even the prison wardens were to see the man's face. But obviously the provision of this mask was not public knowledge. So, Mr. Trevor, as you've just heard... A lowly student of the University of London certainly wouldn't have known about the condemned man's mask. So unless you'd actually seen the professor that night, it's inconceivable that the artist would have included the mask in that illustration.
Order, order. Well, Mr. Drebber.
It's a vile scene, isn't it, if you look closely?
Huh?
And as I've already been at pains to point out, I was utterly petrified. Which is why I had it in my head that I'd seen such a blood-curdling sight. But afterwards, I came to my senses and realized that I'd been mistaken.
You're still saying you didn't see it?
If you're stubbornly sticking to that story, witness, then amend your testimony to explain exactly how you think your eyes deceived you. Of course. Only too happy to oblige.
I can't believe he's still not going to concede the point.
What I in fact witnessed was a fellow grave robber at work.
Okay, let's press this. A fellow grave robber? What are you talking about?
Well, I wasn't the only one busy in the cemetery that night, you know. Other body snatchers were at work. Of course, when I saw one emerging from the hole he dug, my heart very nearly stopped. So that's the terrifying sight I actually saw, you see.
You're claiming it was just another student in equally insalubrious business as yourself?
Many of the medical students would wear metal masks to protect them from bacteria during dissections.
Is that true?
Clearly the fellow was using such a mask to protect his anonymity. Wouldn't you say?
Objection!
But there's more to the story, isn't there? The article goes on to say... In the next second, a gunshot rang out suddenly from behind. The bullet pierced the resurrected man's chest. His breath then stilled once more. You might assume that the sexton discovered the miscreant at work, perhaps, and fired upon one of them.
A sexton?
If a grave robber had shot someone in the cemetery, I think it might have been rather big news, my lord. Yes, well,
I can only assume it was an embellished, bolted...
Woo!
I can only assume it was an embellishment bolted on later by the operator. Reporter.
God dang it. An embellishment?
As I explained earlier, most of what the papers published about those events was fabricated nonsense. The journalists had a great time fashioning it into a horrifyingly ghost story.
So, now you're saying there was no gunshot?
That's right, yes, I'm afraid so. I mistakenly thought I'd seen a corpse coming back to life, and then fled the scene. That's really all that happened.
She's gonna say she found a bullet in the body or something. Press this again and get to that point.
Objection!
What's a sexton? I know a sextant, but she's really going at that thing. Pursue.
Excuse me!
Madam to spells. Don't take it out on Mr. Sholmes.
Oh la la, pardon. I was lost in my thoughts.
Would it be fair to say that Mr. Drebber's last remark was significant to you in some way?
I thought it was a little strange, that is all. How Monsieur Drebber could claim this now. If you don't mind me saying, madam, what are you talking about? Well, when I met you 10 years ago at your university dormitory, you recounted to me about your adventures in the cemetery, no? No? Including the gunshot. Cap. You might want to watch your tongue, you know.
Objection!
Have a care, Drebber. That's no way to speak to a lady.
Please, Madame Dispels, carry on.
Of course. According to what Monsieur Drebber told me at the time, he did hear a gunshot from behind him, and the bullet hit the condemned man.
I said nothing of the sort.
Non, you were very explicit about the details. About the mask that the figure was wearing. And the blood that spattered over you when he was shot.
There it is. Enough. Shut up, woman. You're making all of this up.
That will do. Mr. Drebber.
Yes.
You refute that account just given by Madame Dispels?
I have no recollection of ever saying those things.
Come on! Do you really expect us to believe you? Control yourself, counsel. I will not permit baseless accusations in my courtroom.
That's all we've been doing. Right.
Under the circumstances, I think it best that you supplement your testimony with a statement to clarify your position on this. Witness.
Very well.
Hmm.
Now we're gonna get him with the camera. Okay, here's we're gonna. There was no gunshot from behind me at all. Nor any splattering blood.
Hold it!
Yet Madame Dispels has testified that you told her about both of those details. Not true. I said nothing of the sort.
10 years have passed. Without material evidence to the contrary, you have no grounds on which to question the witness's word.
Huh. Tell me, Madame Dispels.
Oui?
What exactly did Mr. Drebber say about the blood that apparently spattered on him?
Alos, this is what he told me. All of a sudden, he heard a very loud gunshot from behind his back. The bullet hit the figure who was emerging from the tomb in the middle of the chest, in his heart.
One dreadful sight after another.
And since Monsieur Drebber was at the time facing towards the condemned man, the blood sprayed from the wound and spattered on his body. That is what he told me.
So, not an experience you would ever forget, is it?
Precisely, and I didn't forget it, because as I already said, it never happened in the first place.
He's clearly lying. If only had some evidence to prove it.
We can't let him win, Miss Naruto.
Get his ass!
So we mustn't overlook a single detail, no matter how small.
And get his ass. So here we go. And get his ass we shall, right now. Present. A camera!
Objection!
Mr. Drebber, do you remember this camera?
But that is the camera from that fateful night.
Yes, we borrowed it from the House of Horrors. What? It was the camera you took with you to the cemetery that night, Mr. Drebber.
And is that supposed to be significant?
This kind of camera is rarely seen in our homeland, so my colleague and I were keen to examine it closely. We noticed that the lens extends forwards on the end of some bellows. Like this.
Hold it!
What's that?
There, just on the bellows.
It looks like a dark red stain.
The vampire notices blood very quickly. That's right. It is a rather conspicuous mark here on the bellows, in fact.
Good lord, are you suggesting?
Yes, my lord. It would appear to be a spatter of blood.
Something that could be confirmed with a simple chemical test. Isn't that right, Dr. Scythe? It would be difficult to determine if it was human blood, or not the blood of some animal. But yes, to test whether or not it's blood at all is simple enough.
I propose that Madame Dispel's testimony was correct, and that on the night in question 10 years ago, you were spattered with blood from the gunshot wound.
Well, And that furthermore, you really did witness the condemned professor emerging from his tomb. Yeah. Somehow doesn't bump at the scythe. There's simply no way you could have forgotten such a traumatic experience. In other words, the only explanation is that you're trying to hide the fact that you saw the professor that night.
Objection!
But why? Why would he want to do that? Well, not for his own gain, it would seem. For whose, then? Who could benefit? Mr. Drebber is obviously lying, in order to protect somebody.
My goodness, he's shielding someone.
Yes, my lord. And clearly, it's someone who doesn't want the truth about the professor coming back to life to be exposed.
Well, Council, who is it then?
It's right there. Come on, right there.
Who's this witness trying to protect by lying about what he saw that night?
Blam.
Take that!
The obvious answer is Dr. Scythe.
Scythe? Whatever do you mean?
Imagine the convict who'd been sentenced to death was not in fact killed. Imagine if that was to come to light. What are you insinuating? What are you insinuating? There we go. And imagine if the convict in question was the country's most hated mass murderer. If it was the professor.
That would be an unprecedented scandal.
Objection!
This is beyond a joke.
Need I point out that the dead cannot come back to life?
What you're suggesting would mean that the execution never actually happened.
Yes, that's exactly what it would mean.
Objection!
Once a man is sent to the gallows, he hangs.
No one could escape. Not in Great Britain.
Objection!
But the fact is, there was a witness to the fact that the man did escape his hanging.
If that were really true, Council, the implications of misconduct would not stop at the supervising coroner. It would taint the honor of the entire judiciary from the ground up.
And it's exactly because of those monumental repercussions that Dr. Scythe would consent to any demand made of her by someone who threatened to expose the secret, even if that meant being complicit in a crime.
You mean...
I mean that Dr. Scythe wasn't collaborating in Mr. Drebber's wicked scheme. She was coerced into collaborating in order to protect her decade-old secret. She switched the dead body of Mr. Asman with the waxwork model and fabricated the autopsy report. Ah! Leg. What the hell? Lord Von Zeeks? Pray forgive my freshly filled hallowed chalice, and a whole raft of other discourtesies now.
Goodness me.
It's just the sort of tall tale Londoners would enjoy, I grant you. An executed killer rising from the dead? A Scotland Yard cover-up of conspiracy at the highest levels? So let me ask you one thing. What's that? If the condemned man really did emerge from his tomb that night, only to be shot in the chest, who pulled the trigger and disposed of him forever? Well, I have no idea at the moment. We have too little information to work that out at present, I think. I couldn't agree more. The Old Bailey is no place for wild fantasies. And have you considered this, my learned Nipponese friend? Considered what? Do you realize just what a dangerous endeavor it would be to coerce this woman into such criminal activity? It's tantamount to declaring war on the entire British police force and judiciary.
But I'd imagine any sum of money being offered for research could warrant it.
To rely on some stage deception when so much is at stake would be madness. Well, I suppose. And this was no petty crime either. The victim was murdered. A man who'd already invested money in the venture and would be instrumental in future profits, too. Yes, I had no reason to kill Mr. Asmund at all. Or are you forgetting that his death results in me receiving not a single penny? The court is already aware of the contract between him, myself, and the victim. No.
There's the contract, that's very true.
The motive for this case runs deep, though. I can feel it. Using threats to coerce the head of the forensic investigation team to cooperate is extreme. Especially for a government grant he had no guarantee of receiving in the first place. If the research grant was the aim, taking Mr. Asmund's life would have made no sense anyway. Which means Mr. Drebber's motive wasn't money at all. He was just trying to kill Mr. Asmund. But why? What was his motive then? Your time is up, my learned friend. I'd say you have one last chance before the jury loses their patience with this charade. I know what to do, it's a newspaper. Let's see if you can back up your heady proposal, shall we? Dodge! How do you explain why this engineer would throw all caution to the wind and threaten his own country?
At this point, I'm not prepared to listen to more of this outlandish conjecture without proof. So, counsel, present your evidence.
I have it, so it's fine. Alright, who exactly was Mr. Asmund to Drebber? There's a connection there that no one's seen yet. And I'm going to have to present 2 pieces of evidence to show what it is. I have one of those, I don't know what the other one is yet. Alright, yes, my lord. The evidence that establishes the motive and explains why the witness wanted the victim dead is right here.
Take that!
It's this newspaper article, my lord.
That was written 10 years ago, and every detail has been examined already? What can it possibly tell?
That drivel should never have been written. It's typical gutter press. Nonsense, that means nothing. Yes, on its own, it isn't particularly significant. However, when considered alongside another piece of evidence, it will completely explain your motive for wanting Mr. Asmund dead.
What other evidence? Counsel, you will present your supplementary evidence without delay. The evidence, which when cross-referenced with the newspaper article, establishes a motive for the deed.
Can I just reference it a second time? Because I know what it is, but... Alright, can I use it twice? Because his signature's on the thing. Let's save really quick in case this is insane. I swear to God, if this is not how I do it, I have no clue.
Take that!
I think it's fair to say that after your presentation of evidence, counsel, we have only half the story.
That's right, my lord. Which is why I just presented another piece of evidence to complete it. Clearly, my learned friend only had half an education, and irony wasn't included in the syllabus. So let me put this in words of 0 syllables that even you will understand. Wait, I see it now. It's a plain syllabus in syllables. That's the irony. That was just a pun, Mr. Naruhodo. The irony was elsewhere. Oh.
Your argument clearly does not stand without this second piece of evidence, which remains elusive.
Ah, yes, sorry, my lord. The evidence I need to supplement the article. I know it's right in front of my eyes.
Counsel, you will present your
Oh, what the balls is it? It's the newspaper. What else is there? Alright, okay, let's see. There it is. Found it, because the signature's on this contract.
Take that!
The signature. That's what we need. It's this contract, my lord. Mr. Drebber, this is the contract you signed with Mr. Asmund. Yes, that's right. The very document, in fact. That proves I had no reason to kill the man. No, I'm afraid not. What? There's something very significant that this newspaper article and the contract have in common.
Really?
And it's that common link. It shows very clearly why you were determined to kill Mr. Odiasman. It seems the defense has uncovered something the rest of us have missed. So, my learned friend, point out what those two pieces of evidence have in common. Where exactly is the link between this newspaper article and the contract? Right there. I was going to save right here, though. We've gone long enough, so we're saving there. Next time, we will blam them in the face with this signature. That's it for now. I have fun up here from watching. That's what's all about it. Having fun. Thanks for coming by, and see you next time.